I note that a quorum is present and that each member has before them copies of the material on our agenda today at their place at the rostrum. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us to consider a few business matters before the committee. These items include the Budget Views and Estimates Letter for fiscal year 2015, consideration of H.R. 935, the Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act, and a resolution commemorating the Smith-Lever Act, which established the nationwide cooperative extension system. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Ranking Member Peterson for his efforts on these issues, as well as his help in enacting the new Farm Bill. As we all know, getting the new Farm Bill on the books was the committee's top priority for the past few years. Recognizing the dire fiscal situation in this country is in, we passed a bipartisan Farm Bill that contributes substantially to deficit reduction while simultaneously making historic reforms in every facet of farm, nutrition, and conservation policy. With the enactment of the Agricultural Act of 2014, our priorities shift to implementing the new law. The committee will focus on its oversight role, ensuring that the Department of Agriculture is administering food and nutrition programs in a fiscally responsible way and implementing the reforms of the new Farm Bill as Congress intended. Additionally, the committee will reauthorize the Commodity Futures Trading Commission while continuing its vigorous oversight of CFTC regulations to ensure that they're not harming economic growth and job creation. Reducing the regulatory burdens on our producers remains a priority for the committee this coming year. And today we begin our efforts with consideration of H.R. 935, the Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act. Frankly, this is a bill that should already be law. The legislation passed the U.S. House of Representatives in the last Congress on March 31, 2011 as H.R. 872 with a large bipartisan vote. Additionally, it advanced out of the Senate Agriculture Committee, but the full Senate failed to consider it. A bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced the bill once again in this Congress as H.R. 935. This legislation is necessary to address the negative economic consequences of a court ruling posed by the case National Cotton Council versus the Environmental Protection Agency. Under the court ruling, producers were required to obtain a redundant permit under the Clean Water Act for the use of pesticides that are already approved for use. The court ruling defies good sense and good government. A legislative fix is needed, and I hope you'll join me in supporting this bill. Finally, we'll have also to consider a resolution to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the enactment of the Smith-Lever Act of 1914. The Act created the Cooperative Extension Service, which is an educational and research partnership between the Department of Agriculture and the nation's land-grant universities. My alma mater, Oklahoma State, is a part of the land-grant educational system, and I'm proud to celebrate its success and the contributions to agricultural research and education. With that, I would yield to my ranking member and my friend for any comments he might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. As the Budget Views and Estimates letter explains, the Ag Committee is committed to reducing the deficit and reforming programs under our jurisdiction to ensure that they're operating as efficiently as possible. Even though the 2014 Farm Bill produced significant savings, we know that Ag programs will continue to come under attack from those outside the committee, and we saw this in the administration's budget proposal, and I expect we'll see it again in the Republican budget. We're willing to do our part, but I hope our colleagues listen to this committee, avoid political games, and keep in mind the intent of many of the programs under our jurisdiction to provide a safety net during tough economic times, be it for farmers or consumers struggling to put food on the table. With the 2014 Farm Bill now law, much of the committee's focus, as the chairman said, will be on implementation. Having gone through this process in 2008, it takes longer always than you would think to make sure that these programs get implemented. And there's a lot of new complicated programs here that I think it's going to take some time, but the Secretary seems confident that the new bill will be implemented in a timely manner. Additionally, the committee will take the task of reauthorizing the CFTC, and I'm hopeful that we can produce a bipartisan bill that can address some of the issues we've seen with Dodd-Frank implementation without undermining what we were trying to do then. Also today, we're considering H.R. 935. This is identical to legislation, as the chairman said, that previously passed on suspension in previous Congress, and I hope that we can spur the Senate on to doing something about that. Also, considering the H.Con. Res. 86, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Smith Lever. I'm the original co-sponsor of that resolution. Urge my colleagues to support that. Today, the work of 4-H clubs and extension economists and crop and livestock specialists at the land-grant universities is perhaps more important than ever. And as you all know, they do an excellent job. So I thank the chair for holding today's meeting. Look forward to working together the rest of this year.
And I thank the ranking member. And before we begin our formal business, I would like to welcome our newest member to the House Agriculture Committee, Mr. Vance McAllister of Louisiana, and note that he brings a diversity of experience and knowledge, the oil and gas industry, the engineering industry, the food retail industry. And I would simply note to our new colleague, almost 20 years ago, Congressman, I came to this body in a special election. I started out where you're sitting there. So, oh well, you might wind up in this responsibility too someday. Again, thank you for joining the committee. And with that, pursuant to the Congressional Budget Act and House rules, this committee is required to submit to the Budget Committee a letter with its views and estimates relating to the concurrent resolution on the budget with respect to all matters within its jurisdiction. Each member has before them a copy of the committee's views and estimates letter that has been prepared in consultation with the ranking member, Mr. Peterson, and must be submitted to the Budget Committee. I would like to note to my colleagues that the House Agriculture Committee is dedicated to ensuring that the federal government continues to promote policies and risk management tools that will keep American agriculture and rural communities strong and our citizens healthy and safe. The Committee on Agriculture worked diligently over the last 3 years to reform all programs within its jurisdiction, which resulted in the passage of the Agricultural Act of 2014, saving nearly $23 billion. The Agricultural Act of 2014 makes historic reforms to farm programs, nutrition programs, to conservation policy. We ensure that every American has food on the table while continuing to be good stewards of the taxpayers' funds. Beyond the $23 billion in savings, it's important to note that we've already experienced budget reductions over the past several years. Further, it's important to note that all of the programs under the jurisdiction of the committee that were not explicitly exempted from the Budget Control Act of 2011 will continue to be subject to sequestration, achieving further savings. And finally, during some of the worst economic times in the last 50 years, production agriculture served as a catalyst for economic growth. The farm safety net now constitutes less than 0.25%. Now think about that for a moment. The farm safety net constitutes less than 0.25% of the federal budget, but it underpins this vital segment of the American economy. The committee looks forward to monitoring the implementation of the Agricultural Act of 2014 to ensure these reforms are implemented in the way that Congress intended. And I now turn to the ranking member if he has any comments. Recognize him.
Chairman, no, I don't. Do you want to move them?
Does any member have any additional comments in regards to the letter? Seeing none, seeing none, seeing none. The gentleman's recognized for motion.
Chairman, I move that the committee approve the letter regarding its views and estimates so that it may be forwarded to the Budget Committee.
Gentleman's made a motion that it be forwarded. Is there a second? Seeing a second from the gentleman from Ohio. Is there any debate on the motion? Seeing no debate, seeing no debate, seeing no debate. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. The committee has passed the motion. The information is forwarded to the Budget Committee. Thank you. And all opposing. Does any member wish to file supplemental, minority, or additional views to the letter that will be transmitted to the Budget Committee? If so, please submit them to the Council's office in 1304 by noon Wednesday, March 19, 2014.
Mr. Chairman, I will be submitting a letter.
So noted. Thank you very much. I now ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Horticulture, Research, Biotechnology, and Foreign Agriculture be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 935 without objection. Seeing no objection, So ordered. The bill H.R. 935 is now before the committee for consideration, and without objection, a first reading of the bill will be waived, and it will be open to amendment at any point. The next order of business, once again, is to consider H.R. 935, the the Reducing Regulatory Burdens Act. For a bill that makes so much sense, it's inexcusable that a couple of our colleagues in the Senate have been allowed to block it. The Agriculture Committee and the House as a whole have made several very different attempts to get this bill to the President's desk for what we are confident would be a guaranteed signature. Today we're trying again because the cost of inaction is too great. H.R. 935 eliminates a redundant permitting requirement for pesticide applications that are already approved for use under federal statute. This extra permit requirement is the result of a misguided court decision in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. The bill language was drafted at our request by the EPA Office of General Counsel to address this problem. Simply put, the permit is unnecessary and serves as a regulatory burden never intended by Congress. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation once again. I urge my friends in the Senate to reconsider their opposition to the common sense bill that enjoys such support. And I now turn to my colleague, the ranking member, for his comments.
No further comments. I support the bill and encourage all of my colleagues to do as well.
Do any members have remarks on the underlying bill? Recognize the gentleman from Iowa.
Mr. Chairman, move to strike the last word.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I just rise in support of this bill, and it is necessary, and it's more urgent perhaps than some people realize. But I wanted to make a point on a piece of the language in the bill that I'm not concerned about its effect here. I think we're covered pretty well, but the words navigable waters always catch my attention. And actually, because of the expansion of the definition of navigable waters of the United States is a big reason why we're here with this bill today. And at a certain point, I went back and researched the history of this. I'm not sure I have all my years right, but it seems to me the Corps of Engineers was granted authority to remove the debris from the navigable waters of the United States in about 1848. And that definition has expanded now into sometimes language that even used the phrase hydrologically connected to, which means anytime two water molecules touch each other, that takes it all the way to the kitchen sink. We've got tiny little waterways that don't often have water running in them that have now been considered navigable waters of the United States. I'd like to see that definition at some point narrowed, but I think this bill is drafted in such a way that it does cover about anything that they can hereafter name as navigable waters of the United States. And that's a marker I wanted to put down. If the EPA or the Corps decides that there's a new rule that comes out that restates the definition of navigable waters of the United States, this bill still covers that future definition, in my opinion. I hope we don't have to come back to this table again. So I urge its adoption. Yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Ohio seeks recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman strikes the last word. Is recognized for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your comments and the ranking member's comments in support of 935. I hope this is the last time we have to go through this process. I sponsored 872 in the last Congress. We passed it out of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and this committee, and we passed it off the House floor, vote 292 to 130. We also had it served in the Farm Bill, as the chairman cited, and I think my colleague from Iowa makes a very good point about the navigable waters issue, and we need to keep focused on that. But a point I also want to make on this 935 bill is the pesticides are already approved under the FIFRA by the EPA. As long as you're applying them to label, you're covered under the state's general permitting process under FIFRA. And this is an expansion of government that can cause more permitting MGS, duplicative, has a higher cost, and it does nothing to protect the environment. And I think it's important to remember that EPA is already involved in the process, and EPA actually helped me back in the last Congress draft this bill. So the EPA is concerned about what this bill can do to the economic effect of farmers and agriculture. And also hasn't been mentioned either is how this bill fixes the court case is a negative impact on our mosquito control districts. And we've seen some of that in the last couple of years of delays in preventative spraying for mosquito control that they had to declare emergencies when they got so bad. And when you declare emergency, then they can go do whatever they want. So we've got a whole list of entities that are supportive of this legislation, including mosquito control districts around the country and agricultural, from the Farm Bureau to crop protection people, all the way across the sector. So just to ask for your support of this bill, and hopefully we can get it done this time. It's important to the rural economy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Any additional requests for recognition? Any additional requests? Any additional requests? Seeing none, the question is on the amendment. The question is on. I'm recognizing the ranking member.
Mr. Chairman, there's no amendments. I move that the bill H.R. 935 be reported favorably to the House with recommendation that it do pass.
The question is on the motion to favorably report H.R. 935. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed signify by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it. The bill H.R. 935 is ordered to be reported favorably to the House of Representatives. The concurrent resolution H.C.R. Conres 86 is now before the committee for consideration, and without objection, a first reading of the resolution will be waived, and it will be open for amendment at any point. I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor with a number of my colleagues on the resolution commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Smith-Lever Act. The Smith-Lever Act established the nationwide cooperative extension system. This is an educational and research partnership between the Department of Agriculture and the nation's land-grant universities. As I've noted before, my alma mater, Oklahoma State University, is a part of the land-grant educational system. I'm proud of the work they do, the success they've had. I want to thank Representative Austin Scott and Representative Kurt Schrader for their efforts in recognizing this important milestone. And with that, I turn to my ranking member for any comments he may have.
Mr. Chairman, I no comments, and I support the bill, and hope everybody else does as well.
Does any member seek recognition? A gentleman from Georgia is recognized. Strike the last word for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, along with you, Chairman Lucas, Ranking Member Peterson, and Mr. Schrader from Oregon, am pleased to offer House Concurrent Resolution 86. On May 18, 1914, the Cooperative Extension Service was formally created by the Smith-Lever Act. As we prepare to celebrate its 100th anniversary in May, this resolution recognizes the significance of the Smith-Lever Act and the Cooperative Extension Service. In addition, this resolution honors the university's faculty and local educators who provide programs that help families and communities solve problems, develop skills, and build a better future for agriculture. Without the help of these people and dedicated volunteers who promote excellence in all the cooperative extension system programs, our country's agricultural industry would not be where it is today. With the continued collaboration and cooperation among federal, state, and local governments, my hope is the success and sustainability of the cooperative extension system will continue for another 100 years. Mr. Chairman, I can't finish without acknowledging the value of agriculture in our national security. A country who can feed itself is always safe from other countries with regard to that, and I would suggest to you that if you don't like being dependent on foreign oil, you sure don't want to be dependent on foreign agriculture. With that said, I ask my colleagues to support this resolution, and thank you, and finish with Go Dogs.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman seek recognition.
Good bill, should pass. Thank you, sir.
Words well spoken. Anyone else seek additional recognition? Seeing no additional requests, seeing no suggestions of amendment, I now turn to the ranking member for a motion.
Chairman, I move that the concurrent resolution H.Con. Res. 86 be reported favorably to the House with recommendation that it do pass.
The question is on the motion to favorably report H.Con. Res. 86. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed signify by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do indeed have it. The concurrent resolution H.Con. Res. 86 is ordered reported favorably to the House. Does any member give notice of intent to file supplemental, minority, or additional views on either H.R. 935 or H.Con. Res. 86? Without objection, the usual instructions are given to staff that consist of making such technical, clarifying, and confirming changes as are appropriate without changing the substance of the legislation. 24 minutes. The meeting is now adjourned.